friends, welcoming you to Starfleet Universe On Call. And tonight, we've got me, we've got Gary, we got Dave. Barry might be showing up. I talked to him a little bit earlier, but my guess is he probably won't show up because he's had these 13-hour days, so he's had some really long-ass days. So he's probably just going to be tired after he's talked to his daughter and go right to bed. So I don't expect him to see him. But anyway, Gary, how you doing?
Not too bad. Well, I guess it's dealer's choice in terms of which topic is next, but I do wonder if X marks the spot in this case.
If you're talking about Andromedans, yeah.
Well, you might find an interesting surprise in the topic I'm referring to.
Oh, you're talking about the FedCom cards? Or the shipways?
Yeah, because on the BBS thread for X Ships Attack, a couple of days ago, Steve Coe posted a pre-final list of the ship cards that are going to go into the product. But it has been noted that it's initially at least going to be a PDF product. So there's been no confirmation as regards what the future print or print-on-demand plans might be for it.
Was that the FedCom BBS or the...
the regular ADB BBS, but in the FedCom section.
Oh, okay. So it's been obviously over more... I always do like last day, so I don't see anything. Okay, there it is. X Ships Attack. There it is. Okay. Oh, yes, the X Ships. There they are. Which would be interesting. Okay. I was wondering who posted this. Like, who's posting this about X ships when it comes to Andromedans? And it's, Gary. So. Okay. Cool. Right. We're in caps log number 53, which I have caps log number 53. And. Okay. Cool. Okay. So that definitely looks like it's going to be it. The rules, therefore, are going to be becoming official. That's interesting. An X Intruder and X Cobra, which are says controversial, might be replaced, and I kind of agree with that because, in theory, to my understanding is that all the ships that are listed here are actually were X ships in the product, actual X ships. While the ones for the Andromedans, my understanding is that they were pretty much conjectural. You know, they were part of module C4A. So,
well, I mean, I guess there are other. It was mentioned that they might get shifted over to some other product because, like, there has been talk before about the product set in the Dark Future where the Darwin basically didn't make it back, say, like, you know, for 12 years, and the Andromedans like fielded battleships and that sort of thing, whatever. So, because I think when that product was being floated, there was an idea that it might throw in stuff from FC or FNE, whatever. So, but you know, it does say in the FC X Ships Attack thread that no decision will be made on whether or not we'll see the Andro X ships in X Ships Attack itself until about August or so. So, but it might be worth like checking the list of the ships for the other empires that will be included.
Yeah, understood. Oop. Actually, okay, because it's showing the. Okay, the one thing I'm confused about is the list that he's showing the products. I'm assuming that the ones that are already done or marked as already done are basically those ships have the ship carts already done.
Well, for about a year or so, because the concept of a communique doesn't really exist anymore, because now it's basically, they call it Haley Frequencies Extras.
Right.
So up until 2020, FedCom had a monthly newsletter, and in each newsletter you usually get like one or more ship cards. Mm-hmm. And for a large portion of, I guess, 2018, 2019, they were basically doing either destroyers or a sample destroyer or war destroyer for various empires. So you had the Federation DWX, and you had the actually the Lyran's got the preview of their command cruiser. So you see, that's why you see it on the list there. And 4 additional advanced destroyer/war destroyers were put into Captain's Log 53. Mm-hmm. So basically the listing that you see on there, it seems that it's only the ones that haven't already been made available are the ones that they're expecting people to actually pay for.
Right.
But they do have a specific marking so that you'll know ahead of time which ones you can already get and which ones will be new.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, or Sabot. Oh, jeez. So the Sabot Reef, it does not exist at present in FedCom, basically. Okay. Oh, okay. Good old Mike West, keeper of the FedCom rules. Okay. So basically saying there's no Sabot in FedCom. So it doesn't. So that capability does not exist in the X ships. Wow, that's warm.
Although it is worth noting that FedCom does include the concept of Speed 32 drones when you play in a scenario from 2580 onwards. So X drones. Well, okay. So X drones are not as powerful as X drones in SFB. They still have the same damage point and warhead strength as non-X drones do. So that's a significant change on the drone side of the equation.
Right.
So, but the only thing is that the sample ships that are in Captain's Log 53, they don't have any Plasma M torps, so we haven't seen the rules for that yet. And we haven't seen the rules yet for the XPPD. So most of the weapons that we've seen are weapons that work on, I guess, what SFB would call a size class warship. So we see the LTORP rules, mm-hmm. and there's rules for like X photons and X disruptors and stuff. I think we went over them in a past episode. So yeah, there'll be more to see in terms of what the final product will do rules wise.
Which don't mind me. Do I have it here, or do I have it? Leave it downstairs. My guess I left it downstairs because I don't see it. Don't mind me. I've got a few Captain's Log sitting right beside me, and that's the one I don't have with me. Yeah. Okay. Don't have Captain's Log number 53 with me. Have 50, 51, 52, but not 53. I must have taken that one back downstairs or left it downstairs or whatever. Because I have them up here because we were talking about some of the Terminal cruisers and some of the Omega empires, and the Omega empires had the Captain's Logs had some additional playtest ships for the Omega empires. Yeah. But yeah, let me see what we got here. When it comes to the ship, we have, of course, big surprise when it comes to the Fed. We have the advanced cruiser, we have the advanced destroyer, advanced frigate, and the war destroyer. Klingon, of course, got the DX, the FX, the F5X, and the F5WX. Makes sense. Okay. The Romulan, you got the Nova Hawk, the Sparrowhawk, the Skyhawk, the K. Wow. That's a shocker for me. A K7X. Because to me, I would think by the time we're getting late in the war, how long were the Klingons actually supporting the Romulans when it comes to sending them ships?
Well, there's actually a bit of a twist to the tale there, but so I guess the ships that you're seeing, many of them are involved in the Romulan Civil War scenarios, either from, I think I remember by now. I want to say Module C2, because that had the Interstellar Concordium in it as well. Or no, was it Module X1? Module X1.
Yeah, because I think C3 has ISC.
So C3 has the Sultorians and a few more Andromedan like bases and stuff, and the LDR. But C2, because C2 has something else. No, one of the C modules. No, C3 has the War of Return. So another civil war.
Oh, okay. The win.
But yeah, the Romulan Civil War, the SFB version of it is in X1, and then there's a playtest Federation of the Empire version of it, Captain Log 50.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about that before, because Captain Log 50 actually comes with like a provisional counter sheet, like quote unquote counter sheet, that you can use to play test the Civil War scenario. So it has the I can't remember if it's the Imperial Romulans or the Republican Romulans. One of those two.
Yeah,
but yeah, basically
they need alternate counters for only one of them.
Yeah, so they basically have it that the Imperial side, Orlandus, because he was based on the western side of the Empire, so he has most of the remaining Klingon hulls. And he also was the one who did the King Eagle X. And then the Republicans were the ones who held Romulus itself. So they had more of the X-ship Hawk series. But what's interesting is that the Nova Hawk X is actually in Module X1R. But it becomes more important during the Andromedan War, because the first one wasn't built until after the Civil War was over. Because the last battle of the Civil War against the ISC or at the Triburnia 4, it basically proved to the Romulans that they needed to have a true X-command cruiser to stand up to the ISC or to other empires that have their own X-command cruisers. So with that, the Nova Hawk started being built. And also the Nova Hawk, one of the Nova Hawks became the Romulan flagship during Operation Unity. We don't know which one though. They haven't, because there's names of 4 of them in X1R, but it doesn't tell you which of the one is the Unity ship. But so it is interesting to see that X-Ship's attack basically presents all 3 of the headline TV empires. Sorry, Gordon. Of the 3 main headline TV empires, all 3 of them have their X-flagships that went to the LMC as part of Operation Unity. Because the Feds had the USS Bunker Hill, which surprisingly enough is NCC 1776, and the Klingons had the Kumarian.
Yeah, I forgot about the Civil War. Yeah, because that was, to me, it's kind of confusing that they even have, a K7X. It's like, wait a minute, why do they still have the Klingon ships? By the time they're building X ships that late in the war. That's
well, actually, there is a twist in the tale as well, because in Captain's Log 40, now this is also mentioned in the Romulan Master Starship book, if you have that, is because Captain's Log 40 basically introduced a bunch of Romulan variants of the Klingon F5W. And in order to explain why they existed, they came up with a new shipment in Y192, which the Feds helped pay for. So if you think about what was happening in Y192, like why would the Feds and Klingons work together to give the Romulans more ships? I'll give you a clue. Think green.
Hydrons?
No. Think green and extragalactic.
Oh, Andromedans. Okay.
Yeah. Because basically the 2 empires sat down and realized that if the Romulans were defeated, it would only serve the Andromedans. Like, it would basically give them more resources to use in their attacks against everyone else.
Ah,
So
okay.
they decided that since the Romulans couldn't build any more ships themselves at that point, their shipyard capacity was full. The best thing was to basically send them new ships. And so the Feds basically agreed that they'd chip in. So hopefully when we ever see the Andro War module for Fed and Empire, there'll be a way to, because it doesn't give you the full list of ships that were sent over,
Right.
but you know that some of them are sent over. So that basically is the way that the K5W and its variants exist.
Huh. That's weird. Just because of you see that the Klingons are giving the Romulans, and the Feds are going, yeah, please do, please help the Romulans. But it was strange times when you have I have the ISC and the Andromedans basically beating you on you, in the short period of time. So strange bedfellows, as they say. There's any, of course, big surprise to have the command cruiser, they call a CMX a light cruiser. I thought that was considered a medium cruiser.
Well, bear in mind that it's not possible to convert a wartime production hull to X technology. So what each of the empires had to do is that if they had a quote-unquote world cruiser, they would have to build a brand new hull to peacetime standards. So it would effectively be a light cruiser, at least in terms of its cost. And then you pay the extra points, like in Federation and Empire terms, you'd pay the XDPs to turn it into an actual X ship.
Mm-hmm. Of course, then we have the War Destroyer and the frigate. Okay, come on. There it is. Sometimes I have problems with my mouse. Even the Orion had X ships, and Battle Raider, big surprise, and War Destroyer, and of course the Light Raider. It's not like the Orions had that many ships. I mean, different types of ships to begin with. Of course, the Hydra Lord Bishop, the Mohawk, Lancer, Knight, Tartar, and Mongol. Pretty standard stuff when it comes to which ships that were selected to be modified to be, well, not modified because these were brand new, right? Brand new builds.
Well, okay, so there's two things going on. One of them is if you have a ship that was built to peacetime standards, then you can convert it to X technology, but it's more expensive than building a brand new ship from scratch. So I think that actually came up because in CL52, there was an article by John Sickles about the Federation heavy cruisers, and he basically noted about how the very first X ship in the Alpha Octant was the Vincennes NCC 1749, and it was a heavy command cruiser originally, the CB model, and it wasn't seen as fully meeting all expectations because they had to rip so much of the ship apart to install the X technology and then put it back together. So in effect, it basically meant that in order to get the best out of the ship, you had to start over. So all the subsequent X ships, X cruisers for the Federation were built from scratch.
Right. So it's basically means that the first one ends up being kind of a prototype kind of thing, where things probably didn't work exactly as they should, but they work good enough to prove the technology in an actual environment.
But of course, some empires don't have that luxury. Like the Tholians, for example, they weren't able to build new Neo-Tholian ships, so they had to basically look at the hulls that they had and pay the extra cost to convert at least some of them.
Right.
So.
Understood. Okay, good. There's, of course, command cruiser, light cruiser, destroyer, and I'm assuming war destroyer because you have a DWX and a DDX. And you've got, of course, the winds. Wow. Advanced Auxiliary Cruiser. Okay. That would be interesting. Because I'm assuming that's based off of you know, the auxiliary, like the auxiliary cruiser, the big ship that had basically no maneuverability whatsoever. They were beefed up freighters. You know.
Well, that's the other thing, because the winds themselves, I mean, with the exception of the fish ships, they are also in a situation where they're kind of stuck with what they have.
Yep.
Although it is noted that they did actually start building a significant number of fish ships even after the War of Return. And they sent some of the non-X fish ships to Operation Unity, but they kept the X ships for themselves.
Right. Which, come on, which is totally understandable, because what you're waiting for, okay, if they send a good bit of their X fleet out, and to help out with the Andromedans, who's to say that the Zinnies aren't going to take advantage of the situation and go, hey, they're not, we can take them, and even after the war returned, I'm sure there was some animosity against the winds that still lived in the wind cluster at that moment in time. Actually, were they? I forgot. Did the Andromedans? What did happen with the Andromedans and the wind cluster?
Well, we haven't seen the scenario for it, but they did try to attack. And apparently the wreck of one of the Dominators got turned into a floating war trophy. So, But also apparently, which is interesting because, as you know, most of the time when the Andromedans lose, their ships blow up. So the fact that they actually had a wreck to examine, it's supposedly also, the wreck was actually one of the ways that they figured out that they were from Andromeda. So I think maybe it's like in the current mass spectrometry, like if you point a mass spectrometer at different galaxies, it gives you different readings. So if you point at Andromeda,
right. So
it gives you a different reading than from Triangulum or M81 or whatever. So I wonder, maybe something like that is basically like they did an analysis of the hull or whatever, and they were like, wait, this looks like it's from M31. So, because of course the Andromedans aren't telling you that they're from M31. So,
right.
But there's got to be some detective work that went into figuring out where they're actually from in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Understood. This okay. Of course, okay. You have, of course, the LDR. Big surprise what they have. With the military police corvette and the war cruiser. But wait, what wasn't the LDR defeated? Taken over after the Andromedans attacked and basically crushed them, and then the LDR no longer existed?
They did have X ships by that time. There's 3 scenarios that are worth keeping in mind. There's one in, I can't remember if it's module X1R or X1. I think it's X1R.
Mm-hmm.
It basically shows the Red Guard, which is basically the elite squadron of X ships that the LDR had.
Mm-hmm.
It shows them basically attacking an Andromedan base because the Andros made it look like this was the key base to attack, whatever. And while they were away, in Module C3A, so basically the most quote-unquote real thing that's in Module C3A is a full-on campaign, or mini-campaign, I guess, showing the Andromedan attack on Demarak, the LDR capital system, a planet rather.
Mm-hmm.
And it also includes a second scenario which shows a ship called the Shield Bearer, which got called away to defend this other colony. And then when the attack on Demarak happened, they tried to call it back. So if you're crazy enough, you can actually try to play all 3 scenarios. And bear in mind that the big scenario is actually 10 scenarios, because what you do is you basically play for the main Fall of Demarak campaign, you play the attack on Demarak 10 times. And at the end of each one, you've got a certain amount of, like if you're the LDR, you've got a certain amount of repairing and rebuilding you can do. And if you're the Andromedans, you can shuffle your motherships and satellite ships and so forth and prepare for the next wave. And there's even a scenario variant that lets you do an 11th one, where you basically, if you're the Andromedan, you stock up on commando ships and you have to try to actually conquer the planet. Because in the regular Fall of Demarak, you're just devastating the Hexides.
Wow.
But if you play the other 2 scenarios, that basically informs how many, if any, of those ships make it back to Demarak in time to take part of the campaign.
Ah, okay. Wow. Okay, we got Ken K. Interesting. Okay, just listening. Okay, interesting. Okay. Yeah. Getting back to this.
Although, of course, the Satorians have ships on the list, but technically speaking, they're not real either.
Right.
So,
That's exactly what I was going to get to.
They seem to be treated as more real than the Andromeda ones, though.
Understood. Yeah, because they were beaten up, and basically the hive ship destroyed before the X ships came into being.
Well, there is a theory that because the hive ship was actually building a cruiser on two, size class 4 ships at the time it was destroyed. So there actually is a scenario variant in X1R says that they actually are the first X ships, and it gives you the option of actually rolling them out, even though if they're incomplete, and then trying to fight with them.
Cool. Hey, Barry, you made it.
Hey there. I did. So I tried calling my daughter, and she didn't answer. And I said, okay, I'll give her a few minutes. And then I finally called her, and she's like, oh, well, I've got other things to do. Can I call you tomorrow? I was like, okay.
You told me to call you at this time, and now you're saying that I'm too busy? Kids, you know how they...
You've got one too. You know what they're like.
I got 3. Yeah, understood.
Yeah. Okay. Oh God, 3. Yeah.
Ken K, how you doing?
I stopped at 2.
Doing well.
Good.
Hey, Gary.
How you doing, Barry?
Tired.
So, yeah, we were talking about the X ships that are going to be in X ships Attack, which is going to be the next FedCom product.
Oh, okay. So they're finally bringing X ships to FedCom, eh?
Well, officially, they've had a few playtest X ship cards, both in Captain's Log 53 and also in issues of the Communique PDF. But actually, what's interesting is that this product, it's going to be, initially at least, it's going to be a PDF, but the turnaround's actually going to be pretty quick because they're talking about doing it this summer. So it'll either be before or after Captain's Log 54. And I think CL54, I guess, there's talk about some sort of a EPAC for the Lyrans, like non-X ships. So both things look like they're on the horizon, which is great. But although I'm curious to see what, if any, kind of print options they'll have going forward. But if you're interested, Paul and I were just going through, because on the BBS, Steve Cole posted a list of a pre-final list of the ships that are planned to be in X Ships Attack.
Okay. And
including a couple Andromedan X ships, which is like, okay.
Oh, that could be interesting with phaser ones.
Yep, have phaser ones. I forget from module C3A, and that is when it comes to X ship, supposed X ship, the X ship technology for Andromedans. What other than, of course, the obvious one, which is the phaser ones? What else? What other improvements were added to the ship? Whether also were improved batteries, were the PA panels improved? Things like that.
I don't
yes
think
and yes.
PA.
Okay.
Oh, they have better PAs?
Oh, they sure do. I think that when you have the Marine Force level, they absorb 15 points each, and it's 9 of the lowest. And I think the batteries take it's either 6 points, and their TRHs can be their tractor repulsors, light or heavy, can be fast loaded in one turn.
Wow.
Wow.
That'd be awesome.
And also, if you haven't seen the miniature, Barry, you should have a look on the ADB Shapeway storefront, because a couple of if you remember the really cool looking X ship that was on the front cover of module C3A, well, Steve Zamboni has posted a couple of X ships in that style on the storefront, and they capture. There's the X Conquistador and there's the X Crate, because apparently the crate's becoming it's not just going to be a tournament thing, but
Oh,
I
wow.
think that they're thinking about the crate being kind of like, they say that it's neither fish nor fowl. It's like it's bigger than a satellite ship, but not big enough to be a mothership. So eager to see what they do with that. But yeah, so they do say on the BBS that they might not keep the Andro in there, like they might spin it off to another product. But then just before you came on, I was telling Paul that they have the Saltorian X ships on the list as well, and they're not real either. So I guess they seem to be more realier than the, closer to being real.
More realier.
Yeah, if that's a way to put it. I mean, to give you an example, I mean,
I like that phraseology. More realier.
Yeah. Well, because like for example, FC, they haven't been shy about including a bunch of ships like battleships, for example. They're considered to be quote unquote real in the FC version of the universe, rather than in SFB, where they're much rarer to be found.
Well, people play them all the time, I'm sure.
Oh, the Saturnian X ships?
Well, it's conjectural, but I'll play it. It's conjectural, but I'll play it anyway.
Well, yeah, agree, disagree. I don't think the Saturnians are played that often, but I would agree that if you're playing the Satorians in a campaign, yes, that people fly them in that campaign. Because, because it's just like, other pieces of technology which might not be real, but they're added for campaign usage.
Right.
So are you actually online right now, Barry, or are you just on the phone?
Just on the phone.
I'm just on the phone. I'm
Okay.
just exhausted. It's been brutal couple of days at work.
Yeah. I'm surprised you showed up, just because I know how tired you were.
Yeah. Well, I don't have anything to do tomorrow except get on a plane.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, that's not true. I have to work all morning, then I get on a plane. So yeah, actually, tomorrow's going to be a long ass day.
Understood. I'm gonna have just a normal 9-hour day tomorrow. So.
And then the weekend is going to be driving slowly over the weekend, I guess, driving west. Sunday night, I'll end up in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Wisconsin now, but...
Yeah, it's like, okay, you're coming from Wisconsin, which is Midwest, to like Philadelphia, which is East, and to go to Kentucky, which is almost Midwest. You almost can consider Midwest. Almost. I know.
But my car is in the parking lot at Philadelphia Airport at $16 a day. I got to pick it up.
Yep, got to pick it up.
I can't leave it there.
Oh, understood.
Can't just leave it there.
Yeah, at some point it will be put in really cold storage. I would think.
Yeah.
Just a quick non-Starfleet Universe-related question, because here in Canada, the provinces have been able, at various stages of the pandemic, they've been able to close their borders, even between other provinces. So, from Ontario to Quebec, or from Nova Scotia to New Brunswick or something.
Right.
But in the U.S., do the states have that in power, or is that like a federal thing only?
That's a federal thing only.
No. Yeah. Now that they do have some states have restrictions that I think, for example, I think at one point somebody had to go to a job site from down to Texas. So they flew through O'Hare Airport, and they get into Texas, and they were met by the state police getting off the plane, and were told, you need to go to your hotel and stay there for 14 days or you will be thrown in jail. self-quarantine.
Right.
Or just get on a plane and leave the state. Those are your choices.
That's interesting.
And they literally were not allowed to do anything except order out food and sit in their hotel for 14 days and self-quarantine.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Well, I know that
So
is for...
They were not allowed to go to the job site, so they basically the next day turned around and flew back home. But that was,
Mm-hmm.
So Barry, what part of Wisconsin are you in?
Little teeny tiny town called Prairie du Chien.
Oh, okay.
Yes. It was settled by the French in the 1600s who they started, I guess, the French settlers came in to New Orleans, which is, they're known as Cajuns down there, and they worked their way up the Mississippi River. And the ones that settled in this area were mostly fur trappers who were making their living selling mink and other furs for use in clothing.
Yep, of course.
Here's an interesting pop quiz. Do you know where the term Cajun comes from?
No, I don't. I guess I'm going to get educated.
It comes from Acadian, because in the maritime provinces, especially in what is now New Brunswick, those group of French settlers were separate from the French Canadians who settled in what is now the province of Quebec. And the maritime French, they developed in their own path. Like, many of them intermarried with the Mi'kmaq First Nations, but there was an expulsion order because they wouldn't renounce Catholicism, it was something about they had to do an oath to the British monarch, but it involved renouncing, because when Quebec was conquered, those French Canadians got an agreement where they got to keep, the Catholic religion and certain French civil law, whatever. But the Acadians didn't get that deal, so many of them got expelled, and many of them did end up in New Orleans and in Louisiana, because Louisiana eventually went to the Spanish, but there was still a lot of French influence at the time. So the Acadians who went to Louisiana, many of them basically became the Cajuns. But there's still actually a distinction between Acadian French and Acadian culture that's in the maritime provinces of Canada relative to the French Canadian culture that's in Quebec itself.
Huh.
Interesting. So are you French descent, or?
No, I just, it's pretty interesting reading about, basically how like the histories of, well, I guess what is now the U.S. and Canada intertwine quite a significant amount.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's funny how, like, when you see Hamilton just went on Disney Plus recently, because one of the things that they were so upset about was that there was the Quebec Act of 1774, which solidified certain agreements for French Canadians within what was then the province of Quebec, but which was bigger than the state province, because it included places like Wisconsin and I guess Illinois, and like parts that basically became the U.S. Old Northwest.
So we basically took it from them, or did we purchase it, or just take it?
Well, I mean, because the natives were involved too. Like, I mean, there was the whole thing with Tecumseh during the War of 1812 and so forth. I mean, the status of the border between British North America and the U.S. didn't really get settled until the 19th century. But since then, things have been fairly peaceful, And
oh well, I know that it's been peaceful for over a century now. Yeah.
Barry, what are you doing on the other side of the state?
Well, I'm doing some electrical controls upgrades to a distribution center, place you may have heard of called Cabela's.
Yep.
They have a pretty massive distribution center here that supplies to all their retail stores, or a large portion of them. And so they needed some upgrades to their equipment, and I was doing the computer part of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Always lots of fun. In embedded systems. Well,
Yeah.
they're not really embedded, but they're controller systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they upgraded. Upgraded some scanners, and so they needed to have the controls upgraded to support the new scanners.
Understood. Getting back to the topic at hand. Yeah.
So Andromedans, cool.
Right.
But you're happy.
Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting if that actually becomes part of the product. So
Now this is going to be FedCom. It's not going to be interesting. So FedCom will have Andros, but Starfleet Battles won't. Or will it?
Well, they do as part of C3A.
Well, yeah, but it's very conjectural.
Oh, agreed. The big question then is, of course, because it's part of FedCom, does it make it less conjectural?
I don't know. But C3A, if you remember, it said something. Basically, they prefaced it by saying that this is basically simulator races.
Well, the simulator races were C4.
Yeah, but C3A was basically, they were saying, we've never seen any Andromedan ships like this, but here's one that to throw at the students in the simulators.
Right, because this is a possibility that what we might see in the future with the Andromedans. What kind of technological improvements that they'll do. Facing us. Okay, what kind of improvements? What will they change? Will they adjust?
Right.
For that, which I know we've talked about before, which is about Andromedans and how their weapon systems really didn't change. The ships really didn't change all that much. But
during the General War,
during the General War, even the Andromedan War, when they finally end up in LMC. They're seeing basically the same ships that they're seeing in Galactic, flying around the Galactic, around the Milky Way. It's like, okay, so, are they can't adjust, or do they just not have the manufacturing available to adjust, or what?
Not very innovative. But then again, they may have, and I always got the impression that Andro ships were tiny compared to galactic ships.
Yeah. Agreed.
So it may have been that they were already way up the curve in terms of technology, and their Phaser 2s were really, say, a quarter the size of everybody else's. And they could make a Phaser 1 that was a quarter the size of everybody else's.
Right.
And it just didn't have the mass budget.
Right. But even the Phaser 2s weren't really Phaser 2s for if you read it. The Phaser 2s were the Phaser 2s within the product, because that's as closely approximates that Phaser kind of type of weapon was.
Correct. Right.
Well, actually, I should point out that if you see a lot of the art for the likes of the Dominator and stuff, it's quite big compared to Alpha Octan ships and stuff. And I guess for a size comparison, you could have a look at because the various shape, weight miniatures, like either at 7,000 scale or 3125 or 3788, it gives you the dimensions, but also. Usually, whenever they're being previewed on the BBS, they post just like for example, I think when the Andros were first being talked about, they did a comparison with a Federation CA, and they are thinner, but the overall volume is quite large. But I guess the main speculation is that when it comes to the satellite ships, because in the case of the Saltorians, their hive ship is huge. But the miniature is not to scale with the ships.
Oh,
but
yeah.
The principle is that the ships fit into the hangars. But with the Andromedans, it could be to borrow a term from another franchise, they could be, the hangars could be bigger on the inside in terms of, because we already know that the Andros pull all sorts of, dimension-y tricks
time
when it comes
space
to like things
kind
like
of twisting.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's I guess I mean I suppose the maybe the satellite ships are small for what they were, and then the motherships are bigger and so forth. But anyway, I think I was mentioning before that I think it'd be interesting if there's basically the Andros did what the Japanese are doing with the maglev train that they're building right now, where they basically have to build an entirely new track for the maglev to go on because it can't go on rails. So maybe the Andros have to build an entirely new advanced technology trunk line from Andromeda to a target galaxy and have their X ships go on that. So, but I mean, we'll have to see what happens. But in any case, I guess it'd be definitely interesting to see the opportunities that the new X module will offer, both in terms of like, if for their own sake, but also it'd be interesting to see like what kind of scenarios or campaigns that we know about X ships in SFB would now be playable in MT.
Right. Well, if you're going to give them phaser ones and single turn arming TRs, now one more question, and bigger, 50% more powerful PAs. Now, in terms of their X ships, how are they in terms of dissipating and the PA panels and taking the energy in them and spending it to batteries? Can they clear the panels?
They are better at that too. Sorry, I'm just trying to bring up the PDF for Module C.
Okay, good. Cause
do you have it on file there, Paul?
I probably do. I just have to do a little search. Let me see if I can find it.
Because there is a separate
Okay,
the SFU versions of them are in.
Okay, there's the threat file. Comes to.
Here we go. X rules for Andromedans. It's page 49 of Module C3A. Let's have a look now. Power absorbers. Yeah, it says here 9 points, standard, 15 reinforced. Only 10% of damage is scored from degradation. They're less susceptible to leaks. It says here a single volley scores an amount of damage equal to 4 points per panel box.
Oh, man.
And the power absorber panel must be reinforced to hold the last points leak, blah, blah, blah. Disruptors leak if the total damage from disruptors is equal to 3 points per panel box, regardless of the reinforced status of the panels. 25% of the power in the panels can be transferred to batteries instead of 10%. You can dissipate 2 points of power.
And they can dissipate 2 points of power?
Yep. And they can hold 6 points of power in their batteries. And
they can do, yeah. So basically they got the original Andro dissipation rules back.
Yep. Yes, they did.
Wow.
I was reading that going, oh, Commander's Edition.
Yeah. Oh my. Well, that's gonna make them. You're just salivating to play them, aren't you?
Yeah. Though still has a degradation. Sad, but yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
And what's also interesting is now.
Well, that's faster right back to the batteries. That means that they'll have the power to charge their TRs every turn. What about their displacement device? Can they use that every turn?
Yep, fast loading. First generation.
Yeah, allocating the total amount of warp power energy required during a single turn. It can be held if you're fast loaded as well. And reserve warp may be used to fast load a displacement device.
Sweet.
And on top of that, now unfortunately there are no SSDs to make this work. I don't know if you recall, in the past, we may have talked about how in the Darwin's Dark Future timeline, the Andromedans developed this weapon called the dissection beam, which lets them basically carve bits off ships and make them go back to a starbase to get new ones put on. And it's got special damage rules. So for example, if you hit like a warp engine, if you have additional damage points, it'll take off the rest of the engine. It won't you don't go back to the deck until all those point boxes are gone. And there's an X version of the dissection beam. So if you happen to have 12 points of energy spare in a single turn, you can then fast load that. So, but alas, for now at least, there aren't any SSDs for the X variants of the dissection beam motherships to be able to try that out though.
Right.
There's
Yeah, I'm still here. It was my what's
Yes,
that?
yes, Ken?
there's some X ships in C3A. Start on page 89. There's the X
But those
intruder.
ones all have the regular tractor repulsor beams. Unfortunately, they don't have any of the dissection beam variants there.
That they said you just with the rules to try it out, you just go ahead and upgrade.
Well, true enough, I should say.
An ex-desecrator. Ooh, that'd be nasty. Ex-viper. Ex-eel. Cobra Eliminator. Yeah.
Yeah, at that point you need second generation X ships for everybody else to.
Very bad.
I did not remember that one. The spatial distorter. Spatial distorter weapon.
It was one of the conjectural weapons made up for C3A. It was kind of like a ship-mounted equivalent of temporal. What's the thing?
Elevator?
Temporal elevator.
Temporal elevator, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember that,
Yeah.
that the Andro bases don't have that in FC. They just have an SFB. But I was also going to say that if you do want to have a heart attack for non-Andro, you can look on page 114. It's not an X ship, but it is a ship that does exist in the Dark Future timeline.
Oh, the Devourer. Oh.
Oh, is that like beyond the Devastator?
It's a variant of the Devastator with 4 dissection beams. It's 660 BPV.
Wow.
Okay, let me bring this. 16 front PA panels, 12 rear PA panels. Oy. Okay, we have.
But it's not X, so they're only 10-point panels, right?
Right, they're only 10-point panels. So it can only take 120 points of damage in the rear.
Only.
And it can take 160 in the front. You know, small.
Yeah.
pickings.
Oh, yeah. Of course, it would take it a little while to clear all that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it has 16 batteries, so, not bad. That would be 80 points of power.
Right.
Only 4 displacement devices? Huh. I expected more.
Speaking of the Andros, though, does anybody have any good F&E rules for how to make the Andros work? With the RTN, the Rapid Transport Network.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing. That's the Andromedan, the Andro Wars. Basically, I think ADB has worked on some of that, but it's not a product yet. But obviously, that's one thing. That's one of the things that they're gonna have to solve for Andromedan Wars, which is how the RTN works when it comes to F&E, because of obviously with F&E you've got strategic warp and things can move from base to base really quickly. Now with the RTN, I'm assuming that for the Andromedans they could actually do that more quickly. They could probably possibly go like anywhere in the whole network, and in the case of the RTN, you'd have to simulate the whole idea of a hidden network. The dramas wouldn't actually be shown on the board at all. They had to be hidden, because that was the whole, reason why it's so hard to kill. Find out, okay, where are they? Was the RTN was that they could really very quickly move ships from point A to point B, on a galactic scale, octant scale, So
Right.
It would certainly be a very different setup from the regular F&E, where you've got so many, like you can build up large fleets and go at it like in a more traditional sense, because like you'd almost have to get really used to the small scale, because I think in the 2010 version of FNE they modified the small scale combat rules. So I figured you have to get really used to them, because you're probably gonna have. It wouldn't surprise me if, as the Andromedan player, you'd be basically, once the network is still hidden, you'd most likely have the initiative in the sense that you'd be basically picking and choosing your targets. So you'd be forcing the other players to spread their fleets out widely, and then you can just like try to pick off as many of them as you can, and then rinse and repeat. But and then on the other hand, if Andro War ends up including an Operation Unity scenario, then that would give, I guess the onus would be on the Galactics to win, whatever. But that would basically give like the closest thing to like a set piece campaign. Which the Andromedans will probably lose. But it's basically, at least, if the rules work as they're supposed to work, then it will be easier for them to lose. So, unless you play in the dark future and get all the cool toys.
Yeah, but of course, the whole issue with FNE at that point is that they're just numbers. There's different strength ships, possibly, different types of ships, true. But you don't get all the cool. The cool weapons are only shown as numbers. At that point. As being an SFU player, I always like to play with the new cool toys.
It'd be abstracted into the attack and defense factor.
Right, exactly. That's what I said. They get abstracted into numbers. The other might be a little bit stronger. Yes.
Well, there are precedents in terms of special systems or weapons that, like for example, it doesn't really have a game, like a tactical effect, but like certain ISC ships have a special factor to show that they're armed with a PPD, and that factor allows you to basically create an echelon formation, which gives you various bonuses relative to a standard battle formation. And then in FNE Minor Empires, the Saltorians were given web-breaker factors, which against non-Tholians they do have a limited ship capture function, like to represent the shield crackers, but their main use is, of course, to try to break webs and overwhelm the Tholians' own special web factors and stuff. So I do definitely think it'd be interesting to see, like, maybe there could be some sort of displacement device factor where you can try to maybe move ships out of their formation bonuses or something, and give the galactic player more of a headache than they'd have if they're fighting against like other galactic empires.
Understood. Doesn't the FNE have a special rule for the stasis field generators for those ships?
I'd have to look again.
Yeah, I thought they had something for that. Well, at least when it comes to attacking bases or something like that. But anywho, yeah, Andromedans, that'd be quite cool.
Yeah, I'm sure you would like that.
Andro's rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, the Voodar have their X ships, which is interesting to say the very least.
Yeah, there's stasis field generators in combined operations.
Okay.
But what they do, I couldn't tell you.
Oh, understood. I didn't know either. I remember seeing something special for the SFGs when it comes to the ships. This is many years ago, working on adding FNE into the client itself. So. I would do that, but it's getting a little late. Let's just talk about the Andromedans and tournament cruisers, but that's it's getting a little late to start up that discussion. So I really have quite a bit of quite opinion on different ships on that. And I could go on for a good half an hour around just talking about that.
Nah.
Say half an hour rant or route?
It would not be a rant. It would definitely be a monologue, but I'm for the rest of you, it would kind of put you to sleep.
Well, at the very least, you could explain to Barry why the topic of the Andromedan tournament cruiser is a happening thing right now.
Oh, well, it's
something changed.
No, not yet, but I'm thinking it will because of we've been trying to have the Andromedan changed for years. You know, at least I've always felt like it needs to be changed. But of course, the big issue with that is usually the big holdup is the number of play tests that Mr. Patrick would want to see. And that's always difficult to do, always difficult to arrange, even if online, you know, getting people to say, oh, I'll play against your Andromedan, and so forth. But Peter Bakia said, basically he put down his $10 and said, I'll fly the Andromedan no matter what it is. Because the past couple, I think the first and the last Sapphire Star tournament had the Andromedans, and the Andromeda head is like two TRLs, 6 phaser 2s, and 3 batteries, which overall sucks. And basically, I mentioned to Patrick that I think this is really needs to be changed. So what he said was basically that let's get a much better player, because I'll admit I'm not the best player in the world. Let's get a top level player, which Peter Piquet definitely is. Have him fly what the ship you currently say is unworkable and needs to be changed. See how well he does. Now, here's the one thing. I think the game that he's going to be playing against is, to say the very least, unfair. If you want to use it as any kind of play test whatsoever, because Peter is facing up against a Fed. So because in my mind, it doesn't matter if you had the old overpowerful Andromedans. The Fed could still beat the crap out of that Andromedan. That was one of the ships that the Andromedan had an awful time with, because of it was back in the day. It was I forget what exactly it was called, but basically it'd say, okay, roll 4 dice. Okay, if you roll three out of 4 of those, if 3 of those 4 dice are 1, 2, or 3, the Fed wins.
Right.
And okay, if you only roll 2, roll again. And if you roll 0, if you miss with everything, you lose. That's the way you play the Fed. And okay, if you roll a 2, then you re-roll. If you hit with another 3, you win. It's a die roll game. Is what you could boil it down to that. And so I think it's kind of unfair. Now, I'd like to see how the overall battle goes, because of if let's say just for giggles that the Fed misses with all 4 photons and flies around, but he still beats the Andromedan. I'm sorry, at that point it really severely says that the Andromedan is severely underpowered, Because to me, the biggest issue with the current Andromedan is those two TRLs.
Mm-hmm.
It does not. Every other ship in the freaking tournament has the ability to penetrate a shield on the first battle pass. They have the ability to do it.
Right.
The Andromedan with the TRL does not. If you might have the ability if you get to like range 3. And even with range 3, if you're flying against a disruptor, a disruptor main race, Empire, sorry, Gene.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is do what my opponent did against me, which is if I fire, what he did was on the first turn, corner dodge, didn't put all of his reinforce all his power that was left after movement and so forth, put it into shield number 6. I thwacked him pretty good at like range 4 or 5. I did like 20 points of damage. So actually I think I did 16 points of damage. Not a single point of damage against the shield. Not a single blip.
Against the shield or against the internals?
Against the shield. Because he had enough reinforcement left over. Because he wasn't charging his disruptors to just block it and make my attack completely and utterly useless. So it was as if I had done nothing.
Well, that sounds like you knew exactly how you're going to play, Paul.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I agree. But at the same time, against any other ship in the freaking tournament, would you have done that? Would you have actually put up a brick of 16 points of power on the one shield? I'm willing to bet you that you wouldn't have.
Let me put it to you this way. Because all the guys have been playing together a long time, right? Especially when you start going to Schenectady for the game. Those guys have been playing with each other for a long time, so they know everybody's play style.
Right.
So why wouldn't you do something like that? Because, let's face it, Paul, if I know how you play, I'm going to use that against you for your first round.
True, but of course I've never played this person before, so not in the Andromeda.
No.
Because this is the first time I've ever seen anybody do a side dodge. Usually,
come on, right? I mean, you play Peter often enough every year. You know what his play style is.
Oh, I know, but I wasn't playing against Peter.
Yeah, because you're not playing just the ship. You're playing the people you know too.
Yeah.
So
that is a true statement.
Yeah. So why wouldn't you do something like that? Because if I know your play style and I know you're going to come in hot, heavy, and just ram it down my throat, why wouldn't I do something like that to throw your whole game off?
Understood.
I think you got social engineered more on that one than you did get outplayed.
Hello, Paul. You just gave me an interesting idea for you could do a variant of the tournament where you slice a few FCisms where no general reinforcements, pay twice to fly backwards, so you can't start castle and you can't. You basically, I guess to start flying backwards isn't as much an issue, but the onus would be to try and run and gun. There's another FC rule I was thinking of, but I forget which one. But I wonder if that might be a bit much for the more SFB purist crowd, though.
Now, something's got to be done with the tournaments, though, because they're getting stale, right? And that's why nobody's coming to play.
I agree with that. I've been saying that for years. And I what's that?
It needs to do something, That's where Cole's
I agree.
So,
That was why I started that whole project of the Omega and the LMC tournament cruisers.
Yeah, I mean, we've had different other styles of tournaments, and they really haven't been that popular. See, that's the big problem. At least when it comes to the tournaments at all, is that back in the day when there was a lot of interest in playing tournaments, no one wanted to actually play alternate tournaments that much. We got a couple going. You know, we had the EW tournament. We got I think was it the Frigate Captains. I think we even had a wingman. No, we didn't have a wingman tournament, which is a little bit different. Because basically you have 4 players, two on each side. And let me think. Of course, we had FedCom, the FedCom tournament, of course. But and we had the Andromeda. We tried, with the Omegas, but no one seemed to be interested. Especially when the main tournament was hot and heavy.
Right.
So, look, the question is, okay, yes, maybe the tournament needs, we need a new tournament, new ships, or with new tactics and so forth. But how do we get those players to want to play the newfangled tournament? Because see, one of the reason why I think some people really liked their tournament play was because it was simple. Meaning that it wasn't.
We are talking Starfleet battles here, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean. We didn't have to fly we didn't have to deal with EW. We didn't have to fly with Tech Intel. Even though Tech Intel is basically that's an optional kind of rule. But don't have to do the EW stuff. Don't have to worry about some of the rules. I was going to say Kaufman retrograde, but you can still do a Kaufman retrograde if you want to try. What's the dang it, the all for one, dang it.
Narrow salvo.
Yeah, narrow salvos. Rules like that, which in the case of narrow salvos, they just ruin any kind of tournament whatsoever. Things like that, which simplified the number of rules that actually were used, and people like that, and I think that is part of the charm of having the tournament play. Now, can we have maybe different ships, or maybe different set of rules? Maybe some limited EW, things like that to see if players would be interested in that too. I don't know.
I remember the other rule I was thinking of, mandatory leaky shields, because how in FedCom the shield burn through is turned on by default. So everyone has to deal with it and so forth. Because with SFB, it would be more impactful because the cost of preparing is higher than in Fed Commander. So even if you think that you're going to be able to soak up a hit, then you'll still have to worry about what if it's a random DAC hit and it's something important or whatever. So
right. But I think that'd be kind of neat. Using
but
that.
In terms of competition format, I think in the past we were talking about have a league rather than a tournament. So everyone gets a round robin. So and you could score it based on the. That was because I was thinking about the historical ships and score it based on the BPP. But you basically have it so that instead of just having I win, you lose, you have you measure how much damage one side has done relative to the other. And then you put that on the league table, or at least have it as the tiebreaker, if two people get the same number of winning points. And then that's basically a way, so that, because right now, as you were just saying, if Peter loses against the Fed, then he's out of the tournament. So then that's no more playtesting for the Andro. But if it was a round robin, then everyone would get a chance to try against the Andro and see, or at least you could do 2 groups of, like, if it's 16 competitors, you have 2 groups of 8, and then make it like the the North American leagues like MLS and NHL and stuff. Like, you've got the conferences, and then you've got the round robin, like, to finish it off or something.
Right.
You could do it like that, or like the World Cup, like the World Cup as well. You could have like put groups of 4. If 8 is too much for people to handle, then give them 3 matches they play, and then the top ones from each then go into the semifinals or something. Like, you can, just try to mix it up a bit. And,
understood.
Because, I mean, that's the reason why these tournaments in the real world went like this, because having strict elimination matches, like, you're flying halfway around the world for the major championship, and then you go home after your first match. That's like, what are you even doing, So it's like, it's basically, putting more of, or even have it like with the World Baseball Classic, where it's a double elimination. Whereas, technically speaking, they are groups of 4, but I don't think you can draw. So it's like a little bit different than kind of like mini groups that they have in like more, other kind of international or global tournaments, whatever. But yeah, I mean, like, basically just, I mean, with all the players, like, if everyone who puts their $10 in, maybe they'd want to be able to have a few more games out of it. And you could work it so that everyone is still, the potential maximum number of games doesn't have to increase, if you weight a certain way. Like, do any of you guys think that sounds interesting?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I get shellacked anyway, so I'm good for playing no matter what.
Understood. Yeah,
Yeah, I hear.
I never. Yeah, I agree that maybe a different style tournament would be interesting. Definitely, I don't think we can't do a patrol style tournament. That doesn't work. Not currently. In case you don't know what patrol style tournament is, basically is that you have these matchups that people play random matchups, and then after a certain number of games, usually a certain period of times, then you would find out, okay, who's the top, has the most number of wins, the top 8, and then the most the top 8 of the basically wins to loss ratio. You have your +2 wins, or +3 wins, or +5 wins, that kind of thing, and then you have a single elimination from that. I don't think that's possible. More a double elimination would be good. I think isn't there's a style called Swiss style tournaments, which is something along those lines, where you get to play multiple games before you actually are completely eliminated from the tournament. I know
that's the way Schenectady kind of plays. That's what Friday night and Saturday morning are for. Get in as many games as you can, and then it comes down to the win-loss ratios to see who goes into the 8.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and the thing is, with physical tournaments, you can do that. With online tournaments, it doesn't work, because the biggest issue there, and we've had this in the past, which is real life issues run into interfere. And that's one of the reasons why we have the Sapphire Star tournaments now, because what we do is simple 16 players, single elimination. You have a $10 entrance fee so that you have skin in the game, which will encourage you to play your game, to get it done. Because the problem was that we had these rated ace tournaments which were free, which means, of course, you were free to walk away and just totally mess up the tournament at no cost.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we started having the Sapphire Star tournaments, which are actually supported by ADB themselves, and you have that $10 entrance fee. And of course, if you win the first round, you can get that entrance fee back. But
yeah,
it's only Sapphire Star 4, the last tournament I played in, that I actually won the round 1. So Anyway.
It's always nice.
No, agreed. Well, it's getting late. I know you need to get to bed, and I need to put this thing together and post it up on the various sites that I have to post it on. So with that, I will let you guys go. Gary, it's always a pleasure.
Have a good one.
Having you around. So, Gary, you have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Night.
Okay. Okay. That was all of a sudden. But anyhow, obviously we had different discussions about the X ships, and the Andromedas, of course, came into play. And I even talked a little bit about the tournaments, and maybe there's something we can do a little different at tournaments, maybe to encourage more people to play. Obviously, the one thing right now with SFU Online is not SFU Online, it's FedCom Online. FedCom Online has actually gotten quite popular these last months, in the year of plague, as I've heard some podcasters mention it is 2020 year of the plague. But anyhow, which is great, and I definitely want to add support for X ships in the FedCom client so that we can add these ships and people can play them even more. So with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.